Then why didn't you say anything? Like, what the fuck?
Like, seriously, though.
If she said your name, that means she guessed it. That means she won.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Especially if I've said it a few times. She figured out. No, she still figured out because he's a fucking jerk.
Because I'm a jerk.
Apparently, she said his name several times,
I just love that as you were saying, because he's a fucking jerk, he hit enter on because I'm a jerk.
You're a jerk. You're a jerk.
Oh, God. Okay. And Twitch. Start that one.
Help me. You can't say that word. You have to say the app with the purple box.
The purple box thingy? Sorry.
Yeah, you're good. I didn't find that out till later.
I multi meh whenever I narrate, so.
Just tell me who you are, you little shit.
Maybe the frustration tells you all you need to know.
For the class of 2010 to try to figure out who I know that has starts with an
8. Okay.
Short. Short? Fuck you. I'm looking. Okay, so we have a Facebook group for the class year of 2010 for our high school. I don't know if this person's on it, but I'll fucking look. Okay, I think I know. MIS isn't my real name. What was the nickname I called you? Oh, good grief. Maybe it'll unlock something in my brain because my brain says
I'm so confused. Okay, so there's that. There's that. Alright, I am going to escape now because I need to actually work on this book. Bye, I'm gonna go on my own live now. Thanks for pestering me. Toodles.
Have a good day, Savanna.
You too, if I can figure out how the fuck. Sorry.
You're good.
There we go. Okay, so alright. Actually, let's move the desk up a smidgen. Perfect. All right. La, 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 la. In there. Why isn't it? What's okay, but it's not wanting to show up over her. I need you to cooperate. Okay, so it's showing up there. How about the red one? Okay, it's showing on that one. And how about this one? Awesome. There we are, everybody. Well, there we are then. Let's get this party started over here. You go away. I will handle you later. Davinia, a fate unwound. Them. She would not be weak. Need to turn that up some so you guys can actually hear it. How's that? Is that better? To be one of them. She would not be weak. Not again. Hello, thank you for hanging out with me. I'm currently recording my first audiobook, Davinia, A Fate Unwound. One of them. She would not be weak. Not again. After what felt like an eternity, Themiski finally called an end to the run. The recruits. It's the recruits. Hello, gorgeous. How are you doing today? I missed your face. What felt like an eternity, Themiski finally called an end to the run. The recruits collapsed where they stood, panting, some groaning in exhaustion. Alice stayed on her feet. She wiped the sweat from her brow, heart pounding but steady. Salmon came up beside her, smirking. Not bad. She glanced at him. You're out of breath. So are you, he shot back, grinning. Okay, that means that. Salmon came up beside her, smirking. The not bad needs to be more breathy than. If I could actually see my chat, that would be nice. Hello, thank you for hanging out. I greatly appreciate it. Why won't... Thank you. It better be sparkly for how much I paid for it, man. I just finished paying them off. Salmon came up beside her, smirking. Not bad. She glanced at him. You're out of breath. So are you, he shot back, grinning. Before she could respond, Themiski clapped his hands, calling them to the next station. Strength training. The recruits were led to a section of the grounds where weighted logs. Hello, thank you for joining me. Very much appreciated. where weighted log stone slabs and training dummies waited. Okay.
I did select the thingy. Why are you being mean to me, you bastard?
Hello, Name Twin. Thank you for stopping in. Greatly appreciated.
Will you please do the thing I told you to do?
I did select a track. Restoration. Okay. His hands, calling them to the next station. Strength training. And I lost my spot. There it is. Okay. For real this time. His hands, calling them to the next station. Strength training. And I lost it again. The recruits were led to a section of the grounds where weighted logs, stone slabs, and training dummies waited. Tomiski motioned to the recruits. The battlefield doesn't care how tired you are. You will build the strength to carry armor, weapons, and wounded allies. And wounded allies. And let me delete the first part of that portion where I had lost my spot. Delete that part. Hello, thank you for joining me. I'm currently recording my very first audiobook, Divinia, A Fate Unwound. The battlefield doesn't care how tired you are. You will build the strength to carry armor, weapons, and wounded allies. You will learn to push forward even when every muscle in your body begs you to stop. Alice gritted her teeth. This was where she would prove herself. The first test was carrying a weighted log across the field and back. Some recruits barely managed a few steps before their knees buckled, while others trudged forward with grim determination. Alice hoisted her log onto her shoulders, adjusting to its crushing weight. What? Adjusting to its crushing weight. I said that weird. Hello, thank you for joining me. Greatly appreciated. Let me go in on this one so I can actually see what everybody is saying. Shamamale. Nope, wrong way.
My bad.
Hello, thank you for joining. Much appreciated. Nope, can't put that there. That will make it go. Let's set that there so I can see if people say anything. Hello, Joseph. Thank you for joining. Much appreciated. Alice hoisted her log onto her shoulders, adjusting to its crushing weight. It pressed against her spine, her muscles burning instantly, but she set her jaw and moved. Lef was one of the few who kept pace with her, her powerful frame built for the task. Sol struggled at first, but quickly found his rhythm. Rebecca grunted with effort. Her usually playful, and that was mouth noises, wasn't it? Rebecca grunted with effort. Her usual... Yeah, that was lots of mouth noises. Hello, thank you for joining me. Okay. Struggled at first, but quickly found his rhythm. Rebecca grunted with effort, her usually playful demeanor absent as she pushed forward, her face a mask of strain. Salmond moved with controlled ease, though sweat dripped from his brow. I said bow.
Though sweat dripped from his brow.
Yes, I did. Though sweat dripped from his brow. Hello, thank you for joining me. Very much appreciated. Jessup, to no one's surprise, carried his log while humming some nonsensical tune. A burden is only heavy if you let it be, he mused. Or maybe it's just heavy. Alice ignored him. Step for step, she focused on the rhythm of her breathing, forcing herself forward despite the growing fire in her legs. That was a door.
Step for step, she focused on the rhythm of her breathing, forcing herself forward despite the growing fire in her legs.
Rar?
Oh, I think the wrong person said come in.
Yes?
I knocked on your door and I think Sophie said come in.
I am live at the moment, just so you are aware.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. What's up?
I just came to Fesker.
Oh, okay.
Give you some smoochies.
Yay, smoochies. Eat. Thank you.
I love you too.
I'm getting Sadie to take me to Walmart. I'm gonna get a couple lamps and some drinks.
Okie dokie. Hey, you.
Alright, where was I at?
Focused on the rhythm of her breathing,
Rhythm of her breathing, where is that at? Forcing herself forward despite the growing fire in her legs. Halfway across the field, she spotted recruits ahead of her dropping their logs, some collapsing from sheer exhaustion. The moment one fell, instructors swarmed in, barking orders for them to stand or be disqualified from training. Not me. Never again, Alice thought. My tummy just made a noise. Excuse me. Apologies. I feel a bubble. It's gonna ruin a take. There it went. Okay. By the way, if you like iced coffee, be sure to check out my showcase. I have Javi and the Skinny Mixes syrups over there that I used for this glorious, glorious caffeinated beverage.
You do a sploosh of this and a glorp of that, and then the creamer,
And then water. Because that's the concentrate, and that shit's concentrated.
anyways.
never again, Alice thought.
A cold resolve settling deep within her, she pushed harder. She reached the far end of the field, turned, and started the grueling march back. Her shoulders ached, her arms trembled, but she didn't slow. Lev finished just ahead of her, lowering her log with a deep breath. Sol followed, shaking out his arms, while Rebecca barely managed to stay upright. Salmond arrived next, setting his log down without a word. Jessup somehow finished last, smiling as he let his log thud against the dirt. Not bad for a morning stroll. Themiski's booming voice rang out. Again! Alice's muscles screamed in protest, but she obeyed. Hello. Thank you for joining me. Very much appreciated. By midday, the recruits were battered, bruised, and drenched in sweat. After hours of drills, combat stance corrections, weapon drills, and endurance exercises, Alice found herself at the final task of the day, sparring. Pairs formed across the training ground. Alice barely had time to breathe before she was matched against Soul. He smirked, rolling his shoulders as he took his stance. Don't take it personally when I win. Meow. Meow.
Are you live?
Yeah.
Okay, send me a link.
To which one?
TikTok.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you. If my phone will cooperate. Come on, do the thing. Hello, everybody. Don't take it personally when I win. Yeah, that was the door. Let me double check his voice notes. So. That's right, didn't have these characters in there. It's towards the end of chapter 14, no, 15. I just need Soul's voice.
Yes, yeah. Jessup merely grinned, unbothered. Ah, but silence is his own kind of answer, isn't it? He stretched his arms behind his head and leaned back. No matter. All roads lead somewhere in the end. Alice exhaled through her nose, ignoring the way her chest tightened.
I just need Soul.
She stood abruptly. I'm going to try and sleep. She turned away for a moment.
Further back then.
It would only be General Tomiski. He was a mountain of a man, towering over everyone around him. His broad shoulders were draped in a heavy cloak, and his booming laughter carried across the hall. Despite his imposing figure, there was a warmth in his expression that put Alice slightly at ease. Ah, who might you be? Tomiski's voice was like thunder as he approached, his grin wide and welcoming. New recruits! Alice stepped forward, her chin high despite the nerves twist. Comfortable, and don't be late for training tomorrow. With a curt nod, he left friendly, but carried a challenging edge. Always so gracious, Soul, Rebecca quipped, rolling her eyes with a grin already on his face. Fire and piercing eyes giving her an air of quiet strength. She crossed her arms, observing them for a moment before speaking. Lef Moza, she said simply, her voice calm and steady. Stick to the rules, and we won't have any problems. Jessup rolled his eyes dramatically. Rules are chains for the mind. Only the free can truly soar. Some of us take this seriously, Jessup. Lef shot back, her tone sharp but measured. Alice shifted uncomfortably, sensing an underlying tension between them. Before she could say anything, another figure appeared, a young woman with long, tied-back hair and a disarming smile. Don't mind them, she said, her tone warm and friendly. I'm Rebecca Sworn.
Yep.
Welcome to the chaos. Rebecca's charm was instantly disarming, and Alice found herself relaxing slightly. But the moment didn't last, as yet another figure approached. A tall, lean man with neatly kept hair and a smirk that seemed permanently etched on his face. Soul Jester,
Oh,
he introduced himself.
Yeah, okay.
His voice carried.
I got his voice now. All right, we're good. Him. Soul. He smirked, rolling his shoulders as he took his stance. Don't take it personally when I win. Alice said nothing. Her gaze was flat, devoid of emotion. Apparently I'm not moving enough, so it was like, make sure you say that you're here. There it goes. Okay. Her gaze was flat, devoid of emotion. The moment the signal was given, Thole lunged, his blade aiming for a quick, controlled strike. Alice sidestepped, parrying with brutal precision. The force of her block nearly knocked Soul off balance. He recovered fast, but Alice didn't give him time to reset. She stepped forward, her blade slicing through the air in a relentless assault. Soul barely managed to parry. Soul barely managed to parry, his smirk replaced by focused determination as he backpedaled. The other recruits stopped their own matches, drawn to the ferocity of Alice's attacks. She struck with controlled but overwhelming force, driving Soul back step by step. He tried to counter, slipping past her guard with a swift feint. But Alice twisted her blade and deflected his strike with a sharp clang of steel. Then she hit him. She pivoted on her heel, slamming the hilt of her training sword into Soul's ribs with enough force to send him stumbling. He gasped.
I am just switching out my blanket for my comforter because it is cold and wet outside.
Just a little bit.
Huh?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Little bit.
Okay. I'll see you whenever you decide to take a break.
Okay.
To send him stumbling. He gasped. There it is. He gasped, his stance breaking, and Alice wasted no time. She swept his legs out from under him, and before he could react, she was on top of him, her sword pressed to his throat. A heavy silence followed. Soul coughed, blinking up at her. "All right. That was unexpected." Alice's breathing was steady, her grip on her sword unshaken. For a moment, she considered pressing the blade harder just to prove a point. A surge of cold, bitter satisfaction ran through her. But then she caught Salmon watching her from the side, his expression unreadable. Slowly, she pulled back, stepping off Soul and lowering her weapon. "Hello, thank you for joining me." I don't know what I just did, but that's not what I meant to do. The recruits themselves, their words trailing after her. That was brutal. She fights like a wild beast. She fights like she's trying to hurt someone. Alice turned away, ignoring them. But the murmurs continued, buzzing like a swarm of angry bees. Did I just hear a motorcycle? But the murmurs continued, buzzing like a swarm. Yep. Alice turned away, ignoring them. It's there too. She fights like she's trying to hurt someone. Alice turned away, ignoring them, but the murmurs continued, buzzing like a swarm of angry bees. Tomiski watched her closely before nodding in approval. "That's enough for today. You all survived, which is more than I expected." His gaze swept across the recruits. Swept across. It swept across the recruits, guys.
You all survived, which is more than I expected.
His gaze swept across the recruits before settling on Alice for a brief moment. Dismissed. The recruits exhaled in relief. Some limped back towards the barracks. Others lingered to talk about the day's training. Alice wiped the sweat from her brow and turned toward Salmon, who was already walking beside her. "You're going to get a reputation at this rate," he said. Alice scoffed, a dry, humorless sound. "I don't care." As they approached their barracks, Jessup Jessup strolled beside them, still grinning. His eyes, usually dancing with mischief, held a curious glint as he looked at Alice. "Malice, Alice," he mused, his voice a low, sing-song hum. "A name born of fire and fury, wouldn't you say?" Alice stopped dead, her glare snapping to him. "What did you call me?" Jessup merely shrugged, his grin unwavering. "Nothing. Only that when people speak of you, it won't be with indifference. And names, little Alice, have a way of sticking." She rolled her eyes, a shiver running down her spine despite herself, and pushed open the barracks door. The others followed, talking amongst themselves as they sat down for dinner. Rebecca teased Sol for his loss. Lev simply ate in silence. And Jessup... I forgot to mute my own phone. Now I get to be mad at myself. Good job, brain. Temporary mute. Wah, wah, wah. Wah, wah, wah. Silence. And Jessup... as always, spoke in riddles. Alice kept to herself, only responding when Salmon spoke, her responses clipped and short.
Sorry. Hello.
I put that down too hard and it echoed through my mic. That sucked a lot. Okay.
Gentle this time.
Okay, they're out of the way. Sweet. Her responses clipped and short. As the meal ended and recruits began turning in, Salmon leaned towards Alice. "That dream of yours, did you see anything new?" Alice hesitated. She hadn't told him everything. Not the part where Dirk's voice whispered, "It's your choice." A knot of icy dread tightened in her stomach. She toyed with her food, pushing a piece of bread around her plate, her appetite long gone. "No," she lied, keeping her voice even, a cold mask settling over her features. It was the same. Salmon studied her for a moment, his green eyes sharp, as if he could see through her carefully constructed facade. But instead of pressing, he leaned back against his bunk with a sigh. "Dreams have meaning, Alice," he said, his voice quiet enough that only she could hear. "Sometimes they show us things we don't want to face." Alice clenched her jaw, refusing to meet his gaze. It was just a dream. Maybe. Salmon didn't look convinced, but he let it drop. "Either way, you should get some sleep. Today was just the beginning." How bad was the mouth sounds in there? "Either way, you should get some sleep. Today was just the beginning." "Either way, you should get some sleep. Today was just the beginning." Okay, it's enough that I'm able to cut it out of there. It's fine. Hello, the goat. Thank you for joining me. Much appreciated.
Today was just the beginning.
She nodded absently. She nodded absently and stood, walking toward her bunk. The others were already settling in, left sitting on the edge of her bed, sharpening a knife. Soul still grumbling about his loss. Rebecca laughing at his bruised ego, and Jessup muttering something about fire and shadows. Excuse me, my apologies. I felt that coming though. I was like, no, that's not
Fire and shadows.
into her bunk, her body sore but her mind restless. She turned away from the others, facing the wall, and shut her eyes. But sleep didn't come easily, and when it did, the nightmare returned. The laughter, the feast, the warmth of the fire, only to be replaced by creeping darkness that swallowed all light and sound. The faces of the Emberfall competitors turned gaunt and cold, their voices rising in a suffocating chorus of accusations. Avenge us, Alice. Avenge us. Avenge us. Her grip tightened around Firefang as she stood at the head of the table. The bodies of her comrades lay sprawled before her, not just dead, but broken. Their limbs twisted at unnatural angles, their eyes wide and unseeing, their blood pooling across the cold stone, reflecting the dim, dying embers. Only one remained. Dirk. He sat there, calm, unmoving, his expression unreadable as he stared at her, his gray eyes piercing her soul, demanding. Firefang was in her hand, its blade glinting with a sinister light, dripping with something dark that she knew wasn't her own blood. Alice's breath was ragged, her heart hammering against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But her body moved anyway, a puppet on invisible strings. She raised the blade, her hands steady despite the terror clawing at her mind, a monstrous cold resolve hardening her every muscle. The whispering grew louder, a ravenous roar in her ears, urging her forward. Finish it. Finish it. Finish it. Dirk didn't react. He simply watched, his gaze unchanging. Then, as she pressed the cold, sharp tip of Firefang against his chest, feeling the light give of fabric, the ghostly murmur of, "It's your choice, Alice," filled her mind, echoing directly from his still lips. The world didn't just shatter. It imploded around her, a black void rushing in to consume everything. Alice gasped. I give myself goosebumps there. That was a good scene. Oh.
Everything.
Alice gasped awake, her body jolting upright, drenched in sweat, a silent scream tearing at her throat. Closed the door. Dang.
Thank you.
Consume everything. Alice gasped awake, her body jolting upright, drenched in sweat, a silent scream tearing at her throat. Her breaths came in sharp, uneven gasps, each one a desperate struggle for air. The barracks were dark, the only sound the quiet breathing of her bunkmates. A shadow moved beside her. Salmon. He sat up in his own bunk, watching her carefully. The dream again, he whispered, his voice laced with genuine concern. Alice swallowed hard, her throat dry. The phantom sensation of cold steel. Cold steel. Energy saver is on. Let me plug my computer in. There we go. Ta-da. All right. The phantom sensation of cold steel. Cold steel. Okay, where was I on the page? The phantom sensation of cold steel against flesh still lingering on her fingers. She could still hear her father's voice echoing in her skull, twisting around the image of his calm, expectant face. It's your choice, Alice. She forced a nod, her fingers gripping the blanket so tightly her knuckles turned white. Salmon's gaze lingered on her for a moment before he sighed. Try to get some rest, he murmured. Tomorrow will be even harder. Alice didn't respond, because deep down, she knew rest wasn't coming tonight. The cold, bitter taste of her dream clung to her. She wanted to hurt something, to break it. She lay back down, staring at the ceiling, her heartbeat drumming in her ears. The barracks were silent. The barracks were silent, save for the occasional shifting of blankets and the slow, steady breaths of the other recruits. But Alice was still caught in the dream, her father's words like a splinter in her mind. It's your choice, Alice. What did it mean? Why did she keep waking before she could make it? She turned onto her side, facing the wall, willing herself to let the exhaustion take her. Her muscles ached from the day's brutal training, her body desperate for rest. But her mind refused to quiet, gnawing on the images of her Fawnlin. But her mind refused to quiet, gnawing on the images of her fallen comrades, of Dirk's unwavering gaze, and the chilling instruction to avenge them. The rage in her, once dormant, was beginning to burn, a cold, dark flame. Somewhere in the room, Jessup muttered something in his sleep, a string of words that made no sense, but sent an eerie shiver down her spine. The fire flickers, but does it burn to light the path, or scorch it beyond repair? Alice frowned, squeezing her eyes shut. She wasn't about to let a lunatic's riddles get in her head. Not when her own mind felt like a battlefield. Minutes passed, maybe hours, before her body finally gave in, her exhaustion a heavy blanket she desperately needed.
Ta-da! Chapter 16. Oh, that was loud in my head. That was some bullshit. Oh.
Okay. Come on. You could do it, computer. Update my processor.
Hello. Thanks for coming back. Appreciate you. Hello, person. I don't know who you are, but appreciate you joining.
Come on, do the thing. You know what? I will do all of that later. Let me just save this. Alright, and where is my video on? We need to move the other chapters over to the thumbnail so I have room to record more chapters.
Hello.
Are you having a good day? Figure you out. Let's cut those and move them to here. Isn't the chat doing the big thing? Hmm. It's being uncooperative, of course. Oh well. I was hoping that I would be able to see it better, however. Cooperating. Hello, 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 hello. All right. Let's move you over here. Chapter 17. Forged in Discipline. The frost clung to the morning air as recruits gathered on the training grounds, their breaths rising in thin, ragged wisps beneath the pale light of the twin moons. The last 5 months had been brutal, grueling exercises, relentless drills, and endless challenges meant to break the weak and forge the strong. Alice had endured it all. Now, standing in formation, her muscles coiled like a drawn bowstring. She listened as General Tomiski paced before them, his sharp eyes sweeping over the ranks of recruits. "Today," Tomiski announced, his voice a low growl, "we separate the competent." Good job, Brain. Good job, Brain. His voice a low growl. "We separate the competent from the exceptional." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Alice remained silent, her mismatched eyes locked on the expression unreadable. "This isn't about following orders. It's about proving yourselves," Tomiski continued. "You fight for a mission. The winning barracks to be sent beyond these walls, tasked with a real assignment. No practice dummies. No instructors to save you. Just your skills, your instincts, and your ability to work as a team." Alice felt a familiar rush of anticipation, cold and sharp. A mission. Finally. Tomiski's lips curled into something resembling a smirk. "The scenario is simple. A siege. One team will defend, one will attack. The victors will be the barracks that break their enemy first." Heyo, thank you for joining me. Very much appreciated. The recruit straightened, tension crackling in the cold morning air. He gestured to a towering structure at the end of the field, a fortress of reinforced wood and stone, lined with battlements and a single heavy gate. "The fortress represents a key Selenian stronghold," Tomiski explained. "One team holds it, the other must take it." His gaze darkened. "By any means necessary." Alice's heart pounded, her fingers coiling into curling. Her fingers curling into fists. No restrictions, no limits. Salmon, standing beside her, exhaled sharply. "This'll be interesting." Tomiski called out the Why my brain wanted to say assessment? It's assignments. Tomiski called out the assignments. Barracks 3, Alice's group, would be the attackers. That was a lot of mouth noise, wasn't it? Barracks 3. Yep.
Iced coffee. Drink iced coffee. Been a good sick.
The assignments. Barracks 3, Alice's group, would be the attackers. A slow, grim smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. She preferred being on the offensive. The recruits split into their assigned roles, moving quickly to prepare for the siege. I just stumbled over that. Moving quickly to prepare for... Yeah, prepare. Moving quickly to prepare for the siege. Barracks 3, Alice, Salmond, Jessup, Leff, Rebecca, and Sol gathered near the designated attacker's base, a stretch of open field leading up to the wooden fortress. Did I stumble over that? Gathered near the designated attacker's base. Gathered near the designated attackers. Detectors? Detectors. Detackers, guys. Detackers. Watch out for the tackers. And Sol. Gathered near the designated attacker's base, a stretch of open field leading up to the wooden fortress. Across from them, Barracks 4 took their positions atop the fortress walls, already setting up makeshift defenses. Their leader, a stocky recruit named Varric, called out orders as his team secured the gates and readied their wooden weapons. Alice barely paid them any mind. She wasn't planning to use a weapon. As the defenders braced for impact, General Tomiski raised his arm, signaling the start of the battle. Attackers, begin the siege. A horn blasted through the air. The recruits surged forward. Alice sprinted at the head of her group, her speed unmatched, a blur across the frozen ground. Most recruits still had their wooden weapons strapped to their backs, waiting to close the distance. Not her. She was the weapon. As arrows tipped with cloth dummies rained down from the fortress walls, Alice dodged effortlessly, moving like a shadow through the chaos. She heard Salmon swearing behind her, saw Sol slagging slightly as he calculated his next move, but she didn't wait for them. The first defender met her just outside the gate, a broad-shouldered boy gripping a wooden staff, without hesitation. Alice ducked at the last second, swooping his legs out from underneath him. Might hope if I actually get the words right, brain. Ducked at the last second, sweeping his legs from beneath him before slamming an elbow into his ribs with a sickening thud as he fell. Good enough. She didn't stop moving. Another defender leaped down from the wall, hoping to catch her off guard. Alice twisted mid-step, grabbing him by the tunic and slamming him into the mud before continuing forward, leaving him gasping for air. Making me do the puzzle piece again. Yay, I'm a person. Hold on. Forward, leaving him gasping for air. Okay. Sorry, Cohabitant was letting me know that she had done an errand that I had asked her to complete. Forward, leaving him gasping for air. There it is. Forward, leaving him gasping for air. Where is that? There it is. Behind her, Barracks 3 fought their way towards the fortress. But Alice was the storm tearing through the front lines, a relentless force. a wooden sword aimed for her shoulder. She sidestepped. A staff jabbed her gut. She twisted and it snapped it in half. She twisted and snapped it in half with a brutal strike of the forearm. She twisted and snapped it in half with a brutal strike of her forearm. By the time the rest of her team reached the fortress gates, Alice had already disabled half a dozen defenders, and not a single one had touched her. Salmon caught up to her, breathing heavily as he surveyed the wreckage she left in her wake. "You know, you can use a weapon," he muttered, stepping over one of the groaning defenders sprawled in the dirt. Alice didn't respond. Her mismatched eyes were already locked on the fortress gates, their next obstacle. Lef and Rebecca arrived next, their weapons raised, though neither had needed to use them much thanks to Alice's path. Their weapons raised, though neither had needed to use them much thanks to Alice's path of destruction. Soul, slightly winded, caught up last, looking half impressed and half annoyed. "Remind me not to get on your bad side," he muttered. Jessup, who had been uncharacteristically quiet. I need to do that sentence better. Who had been uncharacteristically quiet as he moved through the battlefield. Who had been Jessup, who had been Jessup, who had been uncharacteristically quiet as he moved through the battlefield, perched himself atop a fallen defender and grinned at Alice. "The flame does not wield the blade, yet still it burns." Alice ignored him. The fortress loomed before them, the last real obstacle. Varric, the leader of Barracks 4, stood atop the walls, gripping a large wooden shield as he watched Alice's team gather below. "You're good," he called down, "but you're not getting past these gates." Alice took a slow breath, stepping forward. "We'll see about that." A flurry of arrows rained down from the wall, but Barracks 3 was ready. Left raised her shield. Nope, my rhoticism came out there. Left raised her shield, deflecting the incoming shots as Rebecca and Soul pushed forward. Salmon glanced at Alice. "Got a plan?" Alice's eyes flickered toward the reinforced wooden gates. "I'm going through." Salmon hesitated. "Through?" Before he could argue, Alice took off at a dead sprint. She leaped onto a stack of barrels, kicking off with inhuman force. As an arrow barely missed her shoulder, she grabbed the edge of the battlements and hauled herself over the wall, her movements fluid and deadly. For a split second, the defenders froze in shock. Then she moved. Alice landed in the middle of them like a wolf in a pen of sheep, a predator unleashed. The first defender lunged. She twisted, slamming a palm strike into his chest that sent him stumbling into two others. Another swung at her with a wooden axe. She ducked, caught his wrist, and flipped him onto his back with a sharp cry of pain. Varric cursed and charged with his shield raised. Alice sidestepped, slammed her foot into his knee, and Varric crashed into the ground, his shield skidding across the wooden planks to the fortress wall. Of the fortress.
Hey, yo, thank you for joining me.
Crashed into the ground. Crashed into the ground. Where's that line at? His shield skidding across the wooden planks of the fortress wall. He groaned, struggling to rise, but Alice had already turned her attention to the next opponent. A defender swung a club at her ribs. She caught his wrist, twisted, and sent him tumbling over the battlements with a pained shout that ended abruptly. Another came at her with a wooden spear, lunging for her midsection. Alice dodged just enough for the tip to miss her, then stopped inside his guard, delivering a brutal knee to his stomach. The air left his lungs in a ragged gasp before she shoved him back against the wall, leaving him crumpled. She didn't hesitate. She didn't stop moving. The defenders of Barracks 4 were falling apart, their formations breaking as Alice tore through them with nothing but her hands. A whirlwind of calculated violence.
Me.
There it goes. It was not wanting to cooperate, apparently. Okay. A whirlwind of calculated violence. Below her, a loud crack split the air. She looked down just in time to see Lef and Rebecca smashing through the fortress gates, their combined strength forcing the wooden structure to split at the seams with a splintering groan. Salmon and Soul followed, leading the rest of Barracks 3 inside. Varric, still dazed on the ground, finally managed to push himself. Finally managed to push himself to his hands and knees, glaring up at her. We're not finished yet. We're not finished yet. Alice's expression remained cold, her eyes flat. She walked towards him, the other defenders scrambling away from her path. She stopped directly over Varric, her shadow falling over him. Yes, we are.
Hello, thank you for joining me. Much appreciated.
She grabbed the fortress flag, the symbol of their control, and snapped it from its pole in one sharp, decisive motion. The wood splintered loudly across the face of Varric. Did she just smack him across the face with it? Yes. Yes, she did. Okay. Making sure I read that right. The wood splintered loudly across the face of Varric. Silence hung in the air for a moment as Alice held the fortress flag in her grasp, the torn fabric fluttering in the cold wind. A brutal trophy of her I almost said dominion. It's domination. Troshi. A brutal trophy of her domination. Then a horn blast. Then a horn blasted, signaling the end of the siege. Alice tossed the flag onto the wooden planks at her feet, her breath steady despite the chaos she had just unleashed. Around her, the remaining defenders of Barracks 4 either lay groaning on the ground or in the courtyard. Barracks 3 erupted into cheers.